have stood as cornerstones of philosophical, religious, and ethical thought, shaping how we perceive morality, justice, and the human condition. At first glance, the distinction between good and evil appears pretty straightforward. Good is virtuous, selfless, and beneficial, while evil is malicious, selfish, and destructive. However, this seemingly clear boundary quickly dissolves under closer examination. What's considered good in one context might be perceived as evil in another, and what's labeled evil might hold the seeds of redemption or maybe hidden virtue. This paradox challenges our assumptions and invites us to question the very nature of morality. At its core, the conflict between good and evil isn't just a struggle between two opposing forces, but a reflection of human subjectivity. What one individual or society deems good may be viewed by another as harmful or unjust. This relativity arises because morality doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's shaped by cultural, historical, and personal contexts. For example, acts of war are often justified as necessary for the greater good by one side, while the same acts are condemned as atrocities by their adversaries. A leader who wages war to secure freedom for their people may be celebrated as a hero in one narrative and vilified as a warmonger in another. Here, good and evil become entangled, each borrowing elements of the other depending on perspective. Even acts traditionally celebrated as good can carry unintended consequences that blur the line between virtue and harm. Consider the practice of charity, a hallmark of altruism and kindness. While charity often alleviates immediate suffering, it can inadvertently create dependency or disrupt local economies. Aid efforts that seem unequivocally good may foster resentment or harm those that they aim to help. This doesn't render charity inherently evil, but it complicates the narrative, showing how even noble intentions can lead to undesirable outcomes. Similarly, what appears evil on the surface can reveal layers of complexity that challenge its condemnation. Acts of rebellion against oppressive systems often involve violence, which might initially seem evil. Yet, such actions are frequently lauded as necessary sacrifices for the greater good once the oppressive regime falls. The French and American revolutions, both undoubtedly violent in their execution, are celebrated as moments of liberation despite discovery. These narratives remind us that evil is rarely born of pure malice. It often arises from misplaced ideals or unbridled desires. Maybe the most profound exploration of this paradox lies in the idea that good and evil aren't fixed absolutes, but exist on a continuum. Acts that are unequivocally good or evil are rare. Most human behavior occupies a space in between, marked by shades of intention and consequence. Recognizing this continuum allows us to approach morality with humility, understanding that our judgments are shaped by our vantage point and by the limits of our knowledge. But what if evil, as traditionally defined, could be considered the ultimate good? This question is more than philosophical. It invites us to confront our fears and biases. Could acts of destruction pave the way for creation? Could suffering lead to profound growth and transformation? While such ideas may initially seem radical, they highlight the intricate interplay between opposites, suggesting that good and evil may not be entirely separate, but deeply interconnected. If we entertain the idea that good and evil are interconnected, two essential questions arise. Can one exist without the other? And might they serve a mutual purpose in the grander scheme of existence? These questions have long captured the imagination of philosophers, theologians, and writers alike. Without darkness, how would we be able to recognize light? Without suffering, would we actually be able to comprehend joy? The duality of good and evil suggests that each defines and gives meaning to the other, making their coexistence not only inevitable, but perhaps necessary. The notion that evil might serve a purpose is not to diminish the suffering it causes, nor to romanticize acts of cruelty or destruction. Instead, it challenges us to consider the transformative power of adversity. For example, many religious and spiritual traditions interpret suffering as a catalyst for growth, a trial through which individuals are tested and ultimately strengthened. In Christianity, the story of Job exemplifies this. Stripped of his wealth, health, and family, Job's suffering is profound, yet his eventual restoration and deeper understanding of faith are presented as redemptive outcomes. In a more secular sense, societal progress often emerges from the ashes of conflict and tragedy. The horrors of war, though undeniably evil in their immediate impact, have historically led to shifts in power structures, the end of oppressive regimes, and the establishment of human rights. These outcomes don't justify the suffering caused, unforeseen harm. Consider the concept of utopianism, where well-intentioned visions of a perfect society have historically led to oppressive systems. Efforts to create equality or harmony have sometimes resulted in authoritarian regimes stifling freedom and the pursuit of order. The line between good and evil once again blurs, reminding us of the fragile nature of moral certainty. At an individual level, this paradox manifests in our personal struggles. How often do we look back on moments of hardship and recognize them as the turning points that shaped us? The pain of failure, betrayal, or loss, though devastating in the moment, often provides the raw material for resilience, wisdom, and empathy. These experiences, which might be seen as evil by virtue of their pain, become the bedrock of our personal evolution. This interplay also invites us to reconsider the motivations behind actions we label as evil. Many acts of wrongdoing stem not from malice, but from ignorance, fear, or misguided attempts to achieve good. A thief may steal out of desperation to feed their family. A dictator may justify oppression as a means to maintain stability. While such actions are undeniably harmful, understanding the motivations behind them can foster compassion rather than blind condemnation. It shifts the focus from punishment to prevention, from retribution to restoration. And what of good that becomes evil? Consider the impact of technology, which often emerges from noble intentions. The invention of the automobile revolutionized travel and connected the world, but has also contributed to pollution and climate change. The internet, a tool for knowledge and connection, has given rise to disinformation and cybercrime. These examples reveal the dual-edged nature of human ingenuity, where good intentions carry the potential for unintended harm. The tension between good and evil isn't merely a philosophical debate. It's a mirror of the human condition. We're creatures of contradiction, capable of great kindness and terrible cruelty, often within the same lifetime. This duality reflects the complexity of our nature, challenging simplistic moral categorizations. Perhaps the ultimate lesson is that good and evil are not forces to be conquered or eradicated, but realities to be understood and balanced. By recognizing the shades of gray in our actions and intentions, we can approach morality with humility and nuance. We can strive for good while acknowledging our capacity for harm, seeking to minimize suffering without claiming moral perfection. As we navigate this intricate dance of opposites, we're reminded that good and evil aren't static labels, but dynamic processes. They shape us and are shaped by us. person perceives as good may be seen as evil by another. What's destructive today may lay the groundwork for renewal tomorrow. This is not to justify